Good afternoon, all of you. How are you all? Can you hear me? Okay. So today's chapter is Bordetella. Okay, we'll learn about Bordetella today. We'll learn about Bordetella. So coming to Bordetella, they are very small Coccobacilli. Okay, they are gram-negative Coccobacilli. They are gram-negative Coccobacilli. And unlike Haemophilus, they don't require factor X and factor V. Haemophilus, as we know, they require factor X and factor V, if you remember the last class. Okay, but this Bordetella doesn't require any factor X and factor V. Don't read this slide, just listen to me. Okay, if something is needed, I'll say to see the slides. Okay, Haemophilus they need X and V factors for growth, but Bordetella doesn't require any X and V factors for growth. Okay, so Bordetella was first isolated by the scientists Bordet and Gangue, hence named as Bordetella gangue bacilli. Okay, so Bordetella is known as Bordetella gangue bacilli. Now there are different species of Bordetella. Okay, there are different species of Bordetella. Out of them, these are, see the screen, these are all the Bordetella species. Different species of Bordetella are there. Out of which Bordetella pertussis is very important to us. I mean, it is a human pathogen which causes what? See and say, it causes whooping cough. Okay, Bordetella pertussis causes whooping cough. Right? This is important pathogen to human being. It causes whooping cough. Bordetella pertussis causes whooping cough. The other less important Bordetella are Bordetella parapertussis, which causes a milder form of whooping cough. See here, Bordetella pertussis, which causes whooping cough. Bordetella parapertussis, which causes a mild form of whooping cough. Okay, there are other species like Bordetella bronchoseptica, which is a pathogen of domestic animals. Bordetella bronchoseptica, it's a pathogen of domestic animals like dogs, cats, pigs, horses, rabbits, rodents. Okay, so this Bordetella bronchoseptica causes kennel in dogs. Kennel. Okay. Kennel cough in dogs. Then it also causes atrophic rhinitis. It also causes atrophic rhinitis. And in pigs and cats, it causes pneumonia. Okay. So Bordetella bronchoseptica is a pathogen of animals, domestic animals usually. But Bordetella pertussis is for human. Okay. Then other species are Bordetella avium, which causes respiratory diseases in poultry, like turkeys. Okay. Bordetella avium causes respiratory disease in turkeys. Okay. Then Bordetella parapertussis in ships, pneumonia in ships. Okay. Then Bordetella helmicii and Bordetella heinzii, it causes bacteremia in immunocompromised patients. Okay, Bordetella helmicii and Bordetella heinzii causes bacteremia or other diseases in immunocompromised patients. Okay. Some of the other species are Bordetella trimatum, Bordetella ansorpic, Bordetella petri. Okay, these are all different species of Bordetella. Am I clear to you? So what are Bordetella? Bordetella are gram-negative Coccobacilli. Okay, there are different species of Bordetella, out of which Bordetella pertussis is our concern, as it causes whooping cough, and a very little of this Bordetella parapertussis, which causes a milder form of whooping cough. And this Bordetella bronchoseptica, it is a pathogen for animals, avium for poultry, and Holmesii and Henzi for your immunocompromised patients. So these are the different species of Bordetella. We will read about this Bordetella pertussis. So coming to Bordetella pertussis, okay, it causes whooping cough, right? First outbreak was seen in 16th century, and it was the major cause of childhood fatality before vaccination. Now we have got the vaccination, the cases are in decrease, okay, but before it was a major cause of childhood fatality, childhood death. Okay, so what causes whooping cough? Bordetella pertussis causes whooping cough. You have to remember this. Bordetella pertussis causes whooping cough. Okay. Whooping cough. Why it is called whooping cough? We'll see it later. So coming to the age group and the sex which is affected. Mostly the preschoolers between 3 to 5 years of age of infant, newborn, pregnant ladies, they are affected. Okay, mostly the preschoolers are affected. It contributes to 50% of the total case of whooping cough. They 3 to 5 years of age. Okay, and mostly the females are affected. Then the environmental factors which contributes to the spread of this whooping cough. First of all, it is seen in all year throughout. But in winter and spring season, it is more. Okay, in winter and spring season, the cases are more. And in overcrowding places, low sanitation area, poor environmental hygiene. Okay, when the person's immunity is low, immunocompromised patients, these all will get, they are more prone to the whooping cough. Okay. Overcrowded places, low sanitation area, poor environmental hygiene. These are all the places where we are more prone to this whooping cough. Then mode of transmission. Mode of transmission. Tiny droplets from mouth and nose of the infected patients. Okay. Those droplets are infective. Respiratory aerosols. And very close contact also will get the cough, okay, whooping cough, bacilli. Then coming to the morphology of Bordetella pertussis. Okay, we'll see about the bacilli Bordetella pertussis. We'll see about this bacilli of Bordetella pertussis. About this Bordetella pertussis. They are aerobic, and we know that they are gram-negative Coccobacilli. They are non-motile. Most of them are non-motile, except some, we'll see it later. So most of them are non-motile, non-sporing, capsulated, and specific to human. Okay, Bordetella pertussis is specific to human. What other species of Bordetella is animal origin? So Bordetella pertussis is of, they're specific to human, and they colonizes in the respiratory tract. Okay, if we go for toluidine blue staining, we can see bipolar metachromatic granules. Bipolar granules can be seen in toluidine blue staining. Okay, so the aerobic, non-motile, non-sporing, capsulated Bordetella pertussis is specific to human. We don't have any animal reserve. Okay, and they colonizes in the respiratory tract. Then coming to cultural characteristics. Okay, they grow optimally at 35 to 37 degrees centigrade. And the important feature about this is it doesn't grow in simple media like nutrient agar. Okay, like Haemophilus we read in the last class, they also don't grow in simple media like nutrient agar. This also doesn't grow in simple media like nutrient agar. We cannot grow this in nutrient agar, which is simple agar. Okay, simple media. What we need is complex media necessary for isolation. Okay, so one of the examples are boarded gangue, glycerine, potato, blood agar. This is one of the preferred media for the growth of bordetella. Okay, so the blood which is used in this medium, the blood which is used in this agar is not to give. The blood which is used in this media is not to provide any additional nutritive factors. Usually blood is added why? To add some nutritional requirements. But here it does not provide any nutritional factors. But what does it do? It neutralizes inhibitory substances produced by the bacteria during growth. Okay? During growth, this bacteria produces some of the inhibitory substances like fatty acids. Okay, this bacilli, Bordetella pertussis, it produces during growth, it produces some toxic substances like fatty acids. Okay, which is neutralized by the blood which is present in this agar. Similarly, charcoal can also be added for neutralization. So we can use charcoal blood agar. Okay, charcoal blood agar. It is also an alternate medium for primary isolation of the organisms. Okay, so what is one of the examples of charcoal blood agar is this thing, Reagan low medium. Okay, Reagan low medium. Okay, then boarded gangue, glycerin, potato, blood agar, Reagan low medium. These are some of the complex media used for growth of Bordetella pertussis, right? So how does it grow? What type of colonies are seen in these medium? The colonies are very small, dome shaped, smooth, opaque, okay, grayish white. They are refractile, glistering, and they resemble like pearls, bisected pearls, half pearls, okay, or mercury drops. The colonies, not the bacteria. I'm not talking about the bacteria. The colonies of Bordetella pertussis on the complex media of boarded gangue, glycerin, potato, blood agar, and Reagan low, medium, and other charcoal blood agars. The colonies are, see here, they look like mercury drops. And a very faint hazy zone of hemolysis is seen surrounded to the colony. Okay, then if confluent growth is there, if more growth is there, it will look like aluminium paint. Okay, if more growth is there, it will look like aluminium paint. So these are the characteristics of colonies of Bordetella pertussis on complex media. Okay, so you have to remember about the names of the complex media, that is boarded gangue, glycerin, potato, blood agar, then charcoal blood agar, then Reagan low medium. What type of colonies are seen? Bisected pearls or mercury drops like colonies. Okay, if confluent growth is seen, then aluminium, and the look is like an aluminium paint growth. Okay. Now coming to the biochemical reactions, they do not ferment any sugars, and almost all the Other reactions are positive, like indole is positive. So nitrates are positive, citrates are positive, urea is positive, catalase positive, oxidase positive. Almost all are positive except the sugars are not fermented. Okay. Then coming to resistance. Okay, resistance. It is delicate organism and can be killed by 55 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes. Okay, at 55 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes, they will be killed, and also by drying and use of disinfectants, they can be killed. Okay, and the Bordetella pertussis in dried droplets can survive for 5 days on glass, 3 days on cloth, and few hours on paper. Okay, so they are very delicate organisms. Like Haemophilus, they are very delicate organisms. Okay, now coming to antigenic structure. Okay, coming to antigenic structure. What contributes to the antigenicity of the bacilli? So this bacilli is antigenic, we know that. What are the factors which contributes to the antigenicity of this bacilli? Mainly two types are there. One are adhesions, second one is the toxins. These two contribute to the antigenicity of the bacilli. First is adhesions and the second one is toxins. Under adhesions, we have so many adhesives like filaments here, filamentous hemagglutinin, agglutinogens, parectin, fimbriae. These all are adhesions. Adhesions means they are present on the surface of the bacilli. See here the structure. This is the Bordetella bacilli. On the surface, filamentous hemagglutinin, okay, agglutinins, parectin, fimbriae, all are there on the surface, which contributes to the antigenicity of the bacilli. Then coming to the toxins, it produces many toxins. Okay, the bacilli produces many toxins. What are the toxins? Pertussis toxin, which is the most important one. Then acetylate cyclase toxin, tracheal cytotoxin, dermonecrotic toxin, and heat labile toxin. Okay, so what are the things which contributes to the antigenicity of the bacilli? Two things, broadly divided into two things. First is the adhesions. Adhesions means to attach. Okay, something which help in the adhesion, to attachment of the bacilli on the surface of any cell. And the second one is your toxins. What are the examples of adhesions? Filamentous hemagglutinin, agglutinogens, parectin, fimbriae. And the toxin which is produces, the toxins which the Bordetella produces are pertussis toxin, which is the most important one. Then acetylate cyclase toxin, tracheal cytotoxin, dermonecrotic toxin, and heat labile toxin. So we'll see detail about all this, little more about all this. Okay, first coming to the adhesions. Okay, first coming to the adhesions. Then agglutination, agglutinogens. Adhesions, we have this agglutinogens. Okay, agglutinogens. Okay, these are species-specific surface agglutinogens with capsule K antigens. Okay, capsule K antigens or fimbriae. There are 1 to 14 agglutinin factors. Okay, they are named as 1 to 14 agglutinin factors. 1 to 14 agglutinin factors are identified, out of which factor 7 is common in all the species of Bordetella. Other species also, they have this factor 7. Whereas Bordetella pertussis, it is having factor 1 to 6. Bordetella bronchoseptica is having factor 12. Right? And Bordetella 14 is present in Bordetella parapertussis. So Bordetella pertussis is having factor 1 to 6. and factor 7 is present in all other species of Bordetella. Okay, so what is the function of agglutinogens? Agglutinogens promote virulence by helping the bacteria to attachment to the respiratory epithelial cell. What does it do? It just helping the attachment of the bacteria to the epithelial cell. Okay, by this it is increasing the antigenicity. It also helps in the serotyping of the strains in the epidemiological studies. Okay, then coming to the another agglutinogens is over, then filamentous hemagglutinin. Additions, we have filamentous hemagglutinin. This is the second one. Okay, this is also present on the bacillary surface, and it also mediates the attachment of bacterium to the epithelial cells. Like the agglutinogens, they also help in the attachment of the bacteria to the epithelial cells. Okay, and it also adheres to the erythrocytes. Antibodies against this filamentous hemagglutinin are protective. And one more thing about this filamentous hemagglutinin is that they are used in acellular pertussis vaccine. We know that vaccine is present against this Bordetella pertussis. We'll see it in detail later on. But as of now, you remember that in acellular pertussis vaccine, FHA, that is filamentous hemagglutinin, is present. Okay. Then pertactin. So we completed this filamentous, see the screen? We have completed this filamentous hemagglutinin, agglutinogens, then pertactin. Okay. Then coming to pertactin, it is also a outer membrane protein. It is also an outer membrane protein present in all virulent strains of Bordetella pertussis. They are present in all the virulent strains of Bordetella pertussis. Okay. It is also present in the acellular pertussis vaccine. I'll say you what is acellular pertussis vaccine later on, but remember that pertactin is present in acellular pertussis vaccines. Okay, like filamentous hemagglutinin, pertactin is also present in the acellular pertussis vaccine. Then coming to the, so we have seen about the adhesions. Now we'll see about the toxins. The toxins produced by this Bordetella pertussis. What are the toxins produced by Bordetella pertussis? First and the most important one is pertussis toxin. Okay, so this is pertussis toxin. So this is the most important virulent factor, and it is somewhat similar to the cholera toxin. Okay, it is similar to cholera toxin. It is heat labile. Pertussis toxin is heat labile. It is expressed on the surface of the bacilli. Okay, and secreted into the surrounding medium. Right, and it produces different biological and chemical activities. Okay, like it produces lymphocytosis producing factor LPF, lymphocytosis producing factor, then histamine sensitizing factor, islets activating protein IAP, right? So this lymphocytosis producing factor, they cause profound lymphocytosis. Okay, they causes lymphocytosis, like production of more number of lymphocytes, like WBC. Okay. Then histamine sensitizing factor, islets of activating protein IAP, right? So the structure composed of 6 subunits with the A and B structure. A portion being enzymatically active and B being the binding protein. A is enzymatically active and B is the binding component, and it can be toxoided. This pertussis toxin can be toxoided and used in the vaccine. Okay, it is the major component of acellular pertussis vaccine. Okay, acellular pertussis vaccine, PT, that is pertussis toxin, is the major component which is produced by Bordetella pertussis, right? So this is the structure of pertussis toxin. Then coming to the adenylate cyclase, AC, adenylate cyclase. Okay, it is produced by all mammalian Bordetella. It is produced by all mammalian Bordetella. Okay. This is called as AC toxin. It produces AC toxin. It catalyzes the production of CMP. It catalyzes the production of CMP by different cells, the different types of cells. Okay, AC toxin catalyzes the production of CMP in the cells. Then coming to heat labile toxin. These are the different toxins which are produced by Bordetella pertussis. Okay, most of the most important being the pertussis toxin. Okay, then coming to heat labile toxin. It is heat labile. Of course, the name suggests it is heat labile. It is inactivated in 30 minutes at 56 degrees centigrade. Okay, it is heat labile, so it is inactivated in 30 minutes at 56 degrees centigrade. Right? It is present. This is also present in all Bordetella species. It is present in all the Bordetella species. It is dermonecrotic. It is dermonecrotic, means necrosis on the skin. Okay, it is dermonecrotic and lethal in mice. And its pathogenic role is not known till now. Then coming to tracheal cytotoxin. This is one more toxin produced by Bordetella, tracheal cytotoxin. Okay, it is derived from the peptidoglycan of cell wall. This one is derived from the peptidoglycan layer of the cell wall. Okay, it damages the respiratory epithelial cells. It damages the respiratory epithelial cells. So if the respiratory epithelial cells are damaged, the person is more prone to secondary infection. Okay, this is how it works. It also produces interleukin-1 and nitric oxide. This produces interleukin-1 and nitric oxide. Okay. Then lipopolysaccharide. It is heat stable. It is present in all Bordetella and exhibits features of gram-negative bacterial endotoxins. Okay. And this is present in whole cell pertussis vaccine. Previously, we have heard about acellular pertussis vaccine. Now, this LPS, that is lipopolysaccharide, is present in whole cell pertussis vaccine. I'll tell you what are the different types of vaccine. But now you remember that LPS is present in whole cell pertussis vaccine. These all will come in MCQ, okay? LPS is present in whole cell pertussis vaccine. Okay, so this completes the antigenic structure of Bordetella pertussis. So what are these? Are all the structures and the toxins which contributes to the antigenicity of Bordetella. Now we will come to the pathogenesis of Bordetella pertussis. What happens? First positive agent is that which is Bordetella pertussis. What does it do? It liberates a number of antigen and toxins which we have seen just now. Different types of antigens, different types of surface antigens, and different types of toxins are produced. Okay, then what will happen? They change the respiratory, they affect the respiratory tract. Okay, they affect the respiratory tract. Then inflammatory response to the mucosa and the secretion appear. Then what will happen? The local epithelium damages and symptoms appear, which leads to pertussis disease. This is the pathogenesis. Okay, first positive agent will come and it produces number of surface antigen and toxins, which we have just read. Then pathological changes in the respiratory tract, nasopharynx to bronchioles, then inflammatory response to mucosa and secretion occurs, then local epithelium gets damaged, and then the symptoms will start. Okay, so pathogenicity and clinical manifestations. Now, pathogenicity and clinical manifestations. After incubation, the incubation period is about 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, the incubation period is about 1 to 2 weeks. After incubation, it leads to 3 steps. First step is the catheteral stage. See here, first stage is the catheteral stage, second is the paroxysmal stage, and third one is the convalescent stage. Okay, there are 3 stages. One is the catheteral stage, paroxysmal stage, second is paroxysmal stage, and the third one is convalescent stage. Okay. So the first stage is the catheteral stage. In the catheteral stage, all the non-specific symptoms are seen. Non-specific symptoms, okay, like running nose, fever, cough. All the non-specific symptoms are seen in the catheteral stage. It is maximally infective during this stage. We are maximally infective during this stage. Okay, then second one is paroxysmal stage. This is less infectious. Okay, catheteral stage is the most infectious stage. Paroxysmal stage is the less infectious stage. Okay, and in catheteral stage, first stage, the clinical diagnosis is difficult. Here in the catheteral stage, the clinical diagnosis is difficult. Okay, and the smear and the cultures are positive in this catheteral stage. In catheteral stage, if you go for smear and culture, here it is positive. Okay. Okay. Then paroxysmal stage, thick mucus in the respiratory tract is seen. Thick mucus in the respiratory tract is produced. Okay, here whooping cough stage is seen. Paroxysmal stage means the whooping cough stage, right? Whooping cough stage. Then in the third stage, that is convalescent stage, the severity of the cough decreases, right? So there are 3 stages, clinical features. There are 3 stages. First stage is catheteral stage, second is paroxysmal stage, third one is convalescent stage. So first one, catheteral stage. Here the symptoms are non-specific, like fever, rhinitis, sneezing, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, lacrimation, irritation, cough at night. These all are non-specific symptoms, right? Then one you have to remember is that the smear and the culture will be positive in this catheteral stage. The smear and the cultures will be positive in this stage. Okay, but the clinical diagnosis is difficult here. In first stage, we cannot diagnose it clinically. Okay. Then paroxysmal stage. Here, cough means in paroxysm, means repeated cough is seen here, accompanied by vomiting. Okay, whooping cough is seen here. What is whooping cough? Whooping cough means it consists of burst of 5 to 10 repeated violent coughs. Violent coughs is seen here, which ends in audible sound, oomph. Okay, it ends with an oomph sound. Why this sound is seen? It occurs due to rapid inspiration. Rapid inspiration against the closed glottis. We have a closed glottis. So rapid inspiration against the closed glottis at the end of this episode of a cough, this cough, oomph is seen. So it is called as whooping cough. Okay, in between the episodes of the cough, everything will be normal, right? They don't see like it is normal, right? Then in between in between the episodes, the patient is normal. Okay, the episodes of this cough is about 5 to 10 per day. Mostly during the night we have more cough. During this whooping cough, the neck vein is more distended and the eyes are bulging, the tongue protruding outside, and cyanosis is seen. Cyanosis, like bluing of the skin, is seen. So these all constitute the whooping cough. Okay, in this paroxysmal stage, ulcer of frenulum of tongue is also seen, sweating is seen, okay, congestion of the neck vein is seen, then suffocation, like cyanosis of the face become reddish, bluish, okay. Then the mouth opened. Then subconjunctival hemorrhages, convulsions are seen in this paroxysmal stage. See, subconjunctival hemorrhages. So bleeding underneath the conjunctiva. In conjunctiva is there, here bleeding is seen. Subconjunctival hemorrhages. The ulcer of the lingual frenulum. Can you see these ulcers? Okay. So these are the complications. Subconjunctival hemorrhages, bronchopneumonia, lung collapse, okay, convulsions, coma. These all are the complications in the second stage. Okay, paroxysmal stage, these are the complications. Okay, whooping cough, this is. Then the last one is your convalescent stage. Last one is convalescent stage. Okay, the coughing here gradually decreases. Antibodies may appear during this stage. Antibody appears. Okay, start of hungerness. It goes from weeks to months. Okay, weeks to months. So this is known as, whooping cough is known as 100 days. It is known as 100 days disease. Okay, fever, 100 days fever, because it may go till several months. So it is known as 100 days fever. Then we have completed the pathogenesis and clinical features. Then coming to epidemiology. Okay, coming to epidemiology, whooping cough or the pertussis is a bacterial infection. We know this, and is caused by what? Bordetella pertussis. We know this, and it's a contagious disease. Okay, with uncontrollable coughing with little or no fever. So it is known as whooping cough. Why? Whooping means one sound comes after the cough, sound comes. Okay, that is why it is known as whooping cough. It is highest in the first year of life. Okay, preschoolers it is more. Maternal antibodies are not protective against it. It is worldwide distribution. Okay, Bordetella pertussis causes about 95%, about 95% of this whooping cough, and 5% by Bordetella parapertussis, 5% by Bordetella parapertussis, and some very few 0.1% by Bordetella bronchoseptica. Okay. Sometimes this adenovirus infection, mycoplasma pneumonia also may mimic like whooping cough. So we have to distinguish between the Bordetella, pertussis, whooping cough and others. Okay. Then coming to our lab diagnosis. Coming to our lab diagnosis. What are the specimen? Per nasal swab, nasopharyngeal aspirates, west post nasal swab. Okay. Then after collecting the specimen, we'll go for gram staining. Then we'll go for culture. Then we'll go for culture with the special or complex media. Right? So for specimen collection, we can go for cuff plate method. For specimen collection, we can go for cuff plate method. How to do this cuff plate method? Culture plate, this complex media or the culture plate is held at 15 to 10 to 15 centimeter in front of the mouth of the patient. And we say the patient to cough spontaneously. Okay, or we can induce the cough also. What will happen? The patient will cough and the droplets of the respiratory, the droplets will come out and settle on the media. Okay, this is used for the bedside investigation where the patient cannot move, right? Then we can go for culture. Then we will do the culture. Okay, in microscopy, first one, the microscopy, if we do this gram staining, we will see this thumbprint appearance. Okay, in microscopy, we see this thumbprint appearance. In microscopy, we see this thumbprint appearance. The spaces are there, right? Small bacilli are there and specific spaces are there. So it looks like thumbprint. It is known as thumbprint appearance. And this is cuff plate method. So in front of the cuff, we just put the plate and we keep for incubation. Then nasopharyngeal swab. This is collection of nasopharyngeal swab. Secretion from the posterior pharyngeal wall are collected with a swab. Cotton swab is not used. Okay, it is not preferred. Cotton swab is not preferred. This per nasal swab. Here what we do? Flexible wire is passed along the floor of the nasal cavity. Can you see the floor of the nasal cavity? It is passed and the material is collected from the pharyngeal wall. Okay. So alginate swab or Dacron swab are preferred, not the cotton swab. Okay, alginate swab or Dacron swabs are preferred, not the cotton swab. Or we can also take charcoal impregnated cotton swabs to collect the samples. So 6 swabs at 1 to 2 days interval are recommended. Right? And nasopharyngeal aspiration, this nasopharyngeal aspiration swab is nasopharyngeal swab is the best method. Okay, nasopharyngeal swab is the best method here. Right? Then the transport medium is Casamio acid medium. It is a modified Stewart's medium. If you need to transport from the patient to the lab, we have to transport in this modified Stewart's medium. Right? You can add penicillin to become more, it will become more selective. Then identification of bacteria. As we know, we have to go for microscopic culture, then the serology. Paired serum sample for detection of the antibodies, gel precipitation test, complement fixation test, detection of IgA by ELISA can be done from the nasopharyngeal secretions. So this is a serology. Then coming to prophylaxis. Okay, coming to prophylaxis. So for prophylaxis, we go for the, first of all, for treatment, the best is erythromycin. Okay, the best antibiotic is erythromycin. It is a newer macrolide drug of choice. Okay, sometimes chloramphenicol and cotrimazole is used. Then coming to vaccine. So now listen to this. Vaccine. Okay, vaccine are of two types. Okay, vaccine of Bordetella pertussis is of two types. Okay, see this carefully. Whole cell pertussis vaccine. The second type is acellular pertussis vaccine. Okay, there are two types of vaccine: whole cell pertussis vaccine, and acellular pertussis vaccine. Right? So first coming to the whole cell pertussis vaccine. How it is prepared? It is prepared by heating, chemically inactivating and purification of whole pertussis, Bordetella pertussis bacilli. The whole bacilli is taken here and it is heated, then chemically inactivated, then purified. The bacilli is taken, whole bacilli is taken here. Okay, example is DPT vaccine, whole DPT vaccine. WC vaccine is given along with diphtheria toxoid and tetanus. So pertussis is given along with diphtheria toxoid and tetanus. This pertussis, whole cell pertussis vaccine is given with diphtheria toxoid and tetanus. So it is DPT. Okay, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus. DPT, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus. So what are the doses? 3 doses are given of this pentavalent vaccine. Pentavalent vaccine also includes hepatitis B, Haemophilus influenza. Okay, DPT, hepatitis B, Haemophilus influenza are given at 6, 10, 14 weeks, followed by 2 booster doses of DPT at 1.5 years. First booster dose at 1.5 years and second booster dose at 5 years. It may show some adverse effects. This whole vaccine, whole cell pertussis vaccine, have some side effects, okay, like fever, pain, swelling. Then coming to the second type, that is acellular pertussis vaccine. It is composed of pertussis toxoid and FHA. We have read about this, okay, and pertactin and fimbriae. They have very fewer side effects. Okay, so they are available as DAPT along with diphtheria and tetanus toxoid. So there are 5 doses: 6, 10, 14. Booster dose is 1.5 years and second booster dose is 5 years. Okay, this completes your Bordetella pertussis. Okay, this completes your Bordetella pertussis. But the children below 4 years of age who are in contact of the case should receive a booster dose along with chemoprophylaxis of erythromycin of 5 years. Okay. So we have to remember that acellular vaccine has lesser complication. Acellular vaccine has lesser complication. So by this we have completed this Bordetella pertussis. Now we'll see little about this Bordetella parapertussis. Bordetella parapertussis, we know that it shows a milder whooping cough. Okay, the disease is mild. Pertussis vaccine doesn't protect against this parapertussis vaccine. If you are given pertussis vaccine, that doesn't mean that it will also protect against this parapertussis infection. Then Bordetella bronchiseptica. This is motile. This is the only Bordetella which is motile. Others all are not. All the Bordetella are non-motile except this Bordetella bronchiseptica. You have to remember this. Okay. So all the Bordetella are motile or non-motile. They are non-motile except Bordetella bronchiseptica. Okay. It naturally occurs in the respiratory tract of several species of animals. So this is it is seen in animals. Okay. So you can see that the mortality is motility is seen only in Bordetella bronchoseptica. Okay. Oxidase is positive for Bordetella pertussis, negative for parapertussis bronchoseptica. It is also positive. Okay, so that completes your Bordetella. So this is how we can prevent it. Cover your coughs and sneezes as we are doing nowadays. Okay, for coronavirus. So health education is needed, minimizing exposure to susceptible person, especially infant. Isolation and restriction of case should be excluded from this work, school, preschool, as we are all following nowadays the same thing. Okay, education of pregnant women to keep distance to such cases and active immunization. The difference is that we have a vaccine here in this Bordetella, but for corona we don't have vaccine till now. Thank you. If you have doubt, you can write to me. Okay. Bye bye. Stop sharing. Stop sharing.